Hi students, before you start your project, I wanted to go over some really important drawing issues. This is a very long project, so we want to make sure that the drawing is exceedingly accurate. The most important thing you can learn as an artist is to render from direct observation. Ideally, something live like a still life in the classroom or a figurative subject, more so objects than landscape. A lot of people get away with stuff in landscape and organic forms because they do all the curves and all the texture and all the values and all the filling in and make it cool, and they're missing a lot of times the structure of things. Organic things are actually geometric things. You wouldn't think so, but a jelly bean is actually a cube, an elongated cube. So you'll see in the module there about drawing do's and don'ts. The biggest problem people have is with symmetry, ellipses, linear perspective, which is vanishing points, and general placement and size of things. We use value as a rendering tool. Value is not just a way to make things look decorative or light and dark. It's also a way to use mass gesture. In a drawing class, you start out with organizational drawings, line gesture, loose, messy gesture, mass gesture of form. You have to kind of spend time getting to know your subject. You can't draw too much. If you draw 10 times your subject, you might get close to understanding it. So we don't want to use a grid. If you're a serious artist, you really don't want to use a grid long term. It's great for initial studies, beginning classes, getting things set up compositionally. Large grids are fine. It's part of the reason is that usually you don't work from an image. We don't have an opportunity right now to swing around a still life, so we do a lot of photographs of things and images of things, and that's fine for this. But you want to get into a place where you take a lot of drawing classes where there's a model or a still life or something where you're challenged visually in the air and not relying on a two-dimensional flat image. But since we can take advantage of kind of a simple breakdown here. We don't want to get too complex in the grid because it kind of takes away from the structural importance of the rendering for this project. This is a great opportunity to really test your skills and take your time because this goes over the spring break as well. And I picked a very complex subject broken down into sections so that we're all doing something similar. That way they can all tie together almost like a mural. There's a lot of candy ones, there's a few dice and button ones, there's a couple of trinket ones, and depending on what you pick, you're going to get a design right off the bat. There's going to be moments in these designs that are not particularly effective. We talked about these awkward moments, but if this tucks a little more behind here later on, that takes care of that one, and then the other one is right here. So all that means is we could do the value shift a little bit more dramatically, or we just simply overlap one or the other. But that's a last minute thing. Just wanted to point that out because that kind of stuff always bothers my eye right off the bat. So just making a mental note of that to resolve those two things. The rest flows really well. We have unity with variety. We have round shapes, we have square shapes. We have repetition, we have off the edges, we have all kinds of overlap. Those are all successful design elements. It really is irrelevant what this is, as always. The subject is always the least important thing in any kind of design or drawing. People get so caught up on what it is, and it's always like, oh, I like that character, oh, I like that flower, I like that rainbow. And that has very little to do with training your hand and your eye and learning how to compose designs. So there's a lot of overlap between painting and design and drawing. Anyway, I don't want to get too far along. Since we're going to be using your 15 by 20 paper here, watercolor paper, and eventually, we're not even going to touch the watercolor paper for a long time. We're going to work on the drawing on sketch paper. until it's absolutely perfect, and then later we'll transfer it with the yellow carbon paper. For right now, we're going to start getting a sense of this subject. In order to demonstrate gesture drawing, I'm going to have to raise this camera a lot so that you can see that size of the paper. But I want to go over with you what we're doing first. First thing is, and we're not gridding this majorly, we're just going to find the center point on here and find the center point on the paper to help get it structurally a sense of composition, to help guide you a little without breaking it down into too much of a crutch. But it'll just give us a general sense. The other thing is, this is 8 by 10. So when you decide on your section and you print it, I'm printing them all black and white because we don't want to get distracted by the color, and we don't want to choose this design based on the color. In real life, these are greens and oranges and rainbow, you know, candy's bright. It's intended to attract that way. It's not subtle or earthy. But if we can get used to the black and white, then we start to see value, shape, design, and it'll be better in terms of structure for us rendering without the distraction. So basically it's printed in black and white. Really doesn't matter the quality of the print or the printer. You can see this is very pixelated, totally fine. As long as the composition is blocked out, we can get accuracy. If we ever want to add more detail, we would just print it smaller or save a better quality or put higher, you know, quality on the printer, whatever, but that doesn't matter. This is what it is. So what we're going to do here is do this basically to scale. Your paper pad is not 16 by 20, it's 15 by 20. So the paper's easy. 2, 4, 6, 8, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. That's the very, very smallest grid that you can do. This one we're going to do 4 on the big paper. So it's 4, 8, 12, 16. But this way you have to split it in half. So it's actually 5, 5, 5, 5. And I'll go over it when I do the big paper. But this is the side that's 20. So we're going to divide 5, 5, 5, 5. This is the middle point. This one we're just doing 2s all the way, and this is the middle point. That way it corresponds. And it also creates... Oh wait, I'm sorry. This is 2.5, 2.5. So it's basically double on there. So it's 2, 2, 2, 2 across the top, 2.5, 2.5, 2.5, 2.5 down the side. Sorry about that. So split in half, it's 5. It's just a math thing. All right, so the only thing is on the edges here, we're going to lose ½ an inch on either side, and that's because your paper's 15 and not 16. So we're going to start from the inside out, and it just means that this last area on the left is actually 3.5, and this last 4 on the right is 3.5. I'll do it a lot cleaner on here so you can see. So we are losing a tiny, tiny strip on the sides, but you don't need to worry about it because we're starting from the inside out. All right. Ideally, you have your T-square. I'm working on a round table, so that's not going to work. So I have to use 2 dots instead of the T-square, which is more accurate. So 8 by 10. I'm going to go up the sides. It's always good to have this little thing handy so you can just see, okay, those are the measurements. So this is 10. I usually like to start at the 1 inch because it's just cleaner and easier to see. But I'll do this just for the sake of this. Alright, so this one's going to be the 10. So like I said, after I realized it's not 2, it's 2.5, 5, 2.5, and 5. You have to stand when you do this, and you have to move your body with the measurements, just like we did before. Otherwise you get off, and then it's really crooked when you connect them. If you have the T-square, you can just do it from there, just slide it, but in this case I'm gonna just do 2.5, 2.5, 2.5, 2.5. So now I have 4 units, and then I'm going to do 2, 2, 2, 2 across to the 8, I can't see that corner, so I'm just going to do. Oops, it's got to be exact. I'll do one more here. See, you always get crooked with these yardsticks, but the measurements are what it's about. If for some reason you can't see because it's dark in there, you can just use a different color or more pressure or a white pastel pencil or something. I don't have that much dark in here. I always like to do the edge too. This is as tight as we can get. I don't want you to keep going and do 1/2 inch or 1 inch. This is just a guide to get it started, and then we're going to kind of move on to just practicing rendering. If any of you are pursuing art as a life mission or career or any form of it, whether it's web design or game design or graphic design or fashion design, whatever it is, number one, portfolio drawing. Any school, any employer, you have to have solid, complex rendering ability. There's no shortcuts there. It's just, it has to be there. You can do all the great designs in the world and have all these great ideas, but it's not going to work if you don't have the rendering experience. That's why we offer so many levels of drawing classes. But this is a great way to practice. And you got time because we have that big break, and we also have a holiday on the 31st and all that stuff. And we're not worried at this point how it's going to apply to watercolor techniques. Getting pretty even. It's a little bit hard to see. I could go grab a color pencil. I think you get the deal. I'm gonna have to stop anyway because I gotta readjust. And I gotta get the one in the middle. Hard to see there, so I'm going to do another one. I always stand for this stuff. I don't think it's a good habit to sit when you're measuring stuff. Well, ever really. But in this case, when we get back to the room, we'll be doing more standing. So just check it out. Make sure it's really, really, really accurate so we have to deal with it again. And then put a dot right in the middle, because we're going to be working from the inside out. And in a minute I will start on the big one. And then before then I'll go over some basic drawing do's and don'ts. I've made several videos about design and drawing, so a lot of it's going to be repetitive, but especially now that we're doing this, it could be helpful. See you in a bit.